Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're stepping into the shoes of mythic observers, standing right at the edge of the desolate rocky precipices of a dying world. We are here to witness a grand, terrible event, the silent decay of the gods. You're going to see a world literally suffocating under its own weight. But there's a twist. We'll also look at the disruptive alchemy of something known as the living ink. Trust me, it's pretty much the only true salvation from a totally soot-choked end.
Okay, let's jump right in and meet Donar, the god of thunder, or as he's known here, the kingly fool. His entire worldview boils down to this one incredibly arrogant belief. Truth is the thunder. He looks around at the bureaucratic decay of his father, Wotan, and he is just absolutely disgusted. He doesn't want compromise, right? He demands this violent cleansing strike. It's the ultimate expression of a divine ego. And spoiler alert, we're about to see that ego get completely dismantled.
But to really grasp the tragedy that's about to unfold, we have to understand the environment Donner operates in. The gods have built what you could call a calcified order. It's a state of terminal mediocrity that, if you're into Nietzschean philosophy, perfectly aligns with the concept of the last man. Picture this suffocating infinite dungeon where reality is just held breathless by these rigid gray blueprints. The rulers think their iron grip means harmony, but honestly, they are just trapped in a permanent Gothic dusk. Which brings us to our first section, the Hammer of Negation. Let's look at the physical manifestation of all that divine ego. Donner wields this massive stone hammer with an iron-hard grip. But here's the thing, he doesn't use it to build anything. Instead, it acts as an instrument of absolute negation. It represents the divine eye, a merciless intellect that just totally rejects any brittle diplomatic treaties or hypocrisy. He just wants pristine, calculated destruction. He's looking for that one kingly crash to end the decay once and for all. Now this leads us to a fascinating comparison, a tale of two hammers, because Donner's tragic path actually mirrors another major philosophical archetype in this universe. Let's look at how Donner stacks up against the Wanderer. The parallels are honestly striking. See, the Wanderer uses his iron hammer of genealogy to shatter the ancestral cathedrals of old beliefs. Donner, on the other hand, uses his stone weapon for absolute negation, aiming it at what he considers a complete abomination, the Bound Blight. Both of these figures are driven by a merciless intellect to shatter their worlds. But, and here is the kicker, they both unwittingly use their hammers to build their own suffocating prisons. The Wanderer locks himself in the infinite dungeon of intellectual isolation, while Donner just reinforces the vain, empty void of Valhalla. And that brings us to a really profound, tragic irony. You know how the Wanderer is constantly taunted by his shadow, which is basically the accumulated weight of his ancient traumas? Well, Donner is deeply physically connected to his enemy, the Bound Blight. His own divine lightning is actually fused right inside it, so he completely fails to realize that the Blight is a mirror to his own house. Every single time he brings that hammer down to cleanse the abomination, he is literally striking his own foundations. He's destroying himself. So, how do we escape this? Enter the alchemy of chaos. If we don't want this Gothic dusk to become a permanent tomb, we have to look at the spirit siblings. They are the beast-like harbingers of the living ink, bringing the exact chaotic medicine this stiff world desperately needs. Let's see how they completely disrupt the gods' tragic order. First up, we have the Wit. Think of the Wit as this giant, distorting mirror designed specifically to dismantle ego. While Donner is out there demanding a kingly crash, the Wit just uses cynical laughter to expose the trembling hands hiding behind his heavy robes. The Wit looks at Donner's supposedly tough, immutable stone chin and reveals, wait a second, that's just papier-mâché. It completely collapses the ruler's edifice of vanity into a heap of delightful absurdity. It proves that the dramatic stakes of the god's script are entirely hollow. Next is the Hunger, and its job is to dismantle logic. Gods love to build these impenetrable fortresses out of precise equations and rigid laws. Well, to the Hunger, those threads of order are basically just a nutritious snack. It literally swallows the plot of a god's predictable climax, turning their majestic, world-shattering tempest into this wet, black slurry. Absolute certainty gets instantly transformed into a confusing cacophony of, wait, how on earth did this happen? And finally, we have the Small, who dismantles rigid authority through sheer, unpredictable whim. The Small is the ultimate catalyst of the artful mistake. Think of a spilled lamp, a random hiccup during a serious orchestra, or an overturned cup of tea that completely blurs the ink on a royal treaty. The small is that little breeze reminding a calcified world how to actually dance. I mean, it can literally change a tragic decree of execution into a decree for dessert.
Moving on to our next section, the tragic Overman Falls. We have to ask, what happens when a supposed Overman completely lacks this messy, chaotic medicine? Let's go back to Donner and see why he fails to transcend. Watching from our mythic precipice, we see the apocalypse unfold. During the trials of the flame, Donar just totally exhausts himself fighting phantom giants and empty vapor. By the time we reach the climax, he's desperate. He unleashes this massive tempest and aims his final strike right at the bound blight, trying to smash the foundations. But instead of that kingly crash he wanted, his divine lightning hits the alchemical fuel of the blight's shadow energy. And boom, he ignites the thorn of twilight, this jagged spire of absolute destruction that just impales Valhalla from below. In the end, the gods sink in total silence, completely swallowed in soot. Basically, Donar is what we call the Faustbuch Übermensch. He actually possesses that raw, unrefined energy of the Overman, that lightning flash of self-overcoming, but he totally fails to correctly go under. Why? Because he doesn't have the spirit siblings' essential pressure valve. He doesn't have their laughter, their artful mistakes, or the ability to just let the ink smudge. So all that raw energy has nowhere to go but inward. His big quest for a cleansing strike just results in a justified termination, leaving him to sink into the freezing dark. Which brings us to the aftermath, the unscripted comedy. As the dust finally settles on the ruins of Valhalla, we reach the great noontide. This is the exact moment the old god's script is completely thrown out the window. This visual right here perfectly captures our ultimate philosophical choice. Over on the left, you've got the tragedy of forced order, the realm of the last man and the tragic overman alike. It's all breathless control, pristine blueprints, and, let's face it, an iron tomb. But contrast that with the right side, the liberating power of the living ink. This is messy, unscripted improvisation. The page is damp, artful mistakes are actually welcomed, and the stage is wide open. The siblings don't want to destroy the world, they just want to liberate it from its static, boring prison. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on as you look at the rubble of your own certainties. Are you wielding a hammer of absolute negation, striking at your own foundations just to chase some pristine, perfect order? Will you cling to that absolute certainty until you're swallowed up in the soot of your own ego? Or are you going to invite the siblings in? Will you embrace the unscripted comedy of becoming and just let the ink smudge? Ultimately, the choice of what you build is entirely up to you.